Welcome to the True Grime Stories podcast, where in every episode, we'll unravel a new mystery of cleaning business transformation from a grimy mess to a great success. Join me, your host, Jeannie Henderson, as together we dig up cleaning business secrets that you've been dying to know. Welcome, everyone, to our next episode of True Grime Stories. And I can't believe it, but I'm so excited and honored that we have Debbie Sardone again with us here today. Such a great inspiration in the residential cleaning business, but also my mentor and the founder of Cleaning Business Fundamentals. And I'm sure if you're in the residential cleaning industry, you've probably heard of Debbie before, but she is the founder and owner of Buckets and Boats Maid service. She has over 4 decades of experience in our industry, and her program, Cleaning Business Fundamentals, has helped more residential cleaning business owners have $1 million businesses than any other training program out there. Debbie has been my mentor for almost 8 years now, and I know that I probably wouldn't even be in the cleaning business anymore if I hadn't found Debbie back in 2017. So I'm so glad to have you back again today, Debbie. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me a second time. I tell you, I have so many true grime stories in my arsenal with 40 years worth of business and probably almost 30 years or 25 plus years of big mistakes. And so I have lots of grime stories, lots of painful, bloody grime stories.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you have been so vulnerable in sharing them because it helps everyone to hear that even someone who has an amazing, successful business has to go through that, unfortunately, sometimes to discover the best ways, the right ways to systemize and grow their business. And so everyone who's watching today, Debbie and I were talking last week as I was launching a new program that's coming out in January of 2025. And that is called Culture Magic. And so I'm really over the moon excited about this because this has been my journey since actually becoming an entrepreneur way back when my husband and I were in the restaurant industry, but then how my view of culture changed and shifted when I joined the residential cleaning industry. And many of you know that, it is difficult to build a strong culture inside your team when you're running a residential cleaning business. It's really tough. And Debbie was sharing with me that she has had multiple true grime stories just around culture itself. And she was sharing a couple with me, and we said, we should go out and tell people about this. So Debbie, share with me one of your true grime stories when you were trying to grow your business, but culture became the problem.
Yeah, it was such a fun conversation because I'm really excited about the Culture Magic program. And I was sharing with you, Jeannie, that I wish I had the Culture Magic program. I had a great culture through blood, sweat, and tears and lots of mistakes over the years. And a lot of people listening have a pretty decent culture, or even a culture they feel proud of, right? They're like, oh, our culture is great. It's not a problem. And so I kind of had that before you even developed Culture Magic, thankfully, but it was through a lot of trial and error. But here's what I didn't have, Jeannie, and this is what I wish I had in Culture Magic, because I wouldn't have had to fall flat on my face, is there were 2 very specific times in my business when I was extremely successful, right? So this wasn't before I figured out how to build a culture, right? I mean, like you said in the beginning, it's hard enough to create a culture where people who put their hands in other people's toilets every single day for a living, a culture of, I love what I do and I hope I always work here, right? That's really hard. And, CBF, Culture Magic, these are great tools to make it much easier, right? And to make it stick, right? Instead of, you have spikes of good culture and long seasons of bad culture. But what I didn't have, and of course, this is what you've put together in some of the features of Culture Magic, is I didn't have a way to step away from my business and make sure the culture maintained. or thrived or even improved. Instead, when the day came and it was time for me to become fully retired, now there was a period of time, and many people go through this, where I was semi-retired. I was still at the office. They could still knock on the door and say, hey, I have a problem. I have a question. I was still in tune with what was going on, so I could maintain and make sure the culture didn't fall apart. But then when the day came and I wanted to be fully retired and I wanted to have a completely turnkey self-running business, I had no idea that the culture would leave with me. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And if I had had culture magic, then I would have figured this out and prevented it. But I had a wonderful office manager with a completely different personality than myself and different style of management. And over time, in my absence, the culture began to erode, and it didn't look anything like the culture I had built.
Yeah.
And it was just
What
kind of sad.
happens? Yeah. I mean, you're the culture carrier. And I think a lot of us don't realize that the
Right.
culture came from us
Yes.
and it kind of almost exists in us. So
Right.
how do you bottle that and
Right.
keep it going
Well,
when
before
you're not
culture
there in the
magic
room?
had a system, right?
Mhm.
I needed a system that my team could follow to maintain the culture and the values and have the kinds of conversations that keep everything high level, to make sure that bad employees who don't believe in our culture, bad employees who do not align with our core values, are replaced quickly instead of tolerated too long. And so in the beginning, I really didn't have a system. I honestly didn't. And when the culture went down, it kind of caught us all off guard. What happened? I would say the results of what we saw was attitudes changed. People began to gradually feel like a number, not like a person that was valued and cared for, that we all truly loved and elevated and wanted to develop, but more like a number, a cog in the wheel to grind it out, get your paycheck, and get more jobs and get it right and do a better job and get more one-star reviews and get fewer one stars. And it just sort of didn't have a system for the positive stuff. It didn't have a system to emphasize the values that we say we have, right? We say we have. And so obviously I had to step in and I had to kind of create, it's not as good as culture magic, the one I had to kind of put a Band-Aid on. And this has been
I'm
probably,
sure it's pretty amazing.
it's not bad, but
Yeah.
we didn't have culture magic. So I had to step
Right.
in and
Yeah.
create kind of a wow system for maintaining and continuing to wow our employees, and for continuing to hold ourselves accountable as a team to our values. And we're not accountable to our values when we let 10% or 20% of our employees ignore our values and walk all over our core values. So we put that system in place. I would say it was probably a temporary fix, because then when my office manager retired, we still didn't have a solid system in place.
Mm-hmm.
And the new CEO began the same journey of, it was actually a different decline in culture. We had a positive atmosphere. We had an exciting atmosphere. People did
Fun.
feel
It was
loved.
fun,
It
right?
was fun, right? So we
Right.
had pieces of the
Mhm.
culture that we had put in place, but we didn't have the other piece.
Yeah. Well, I think the story that you're telling is actually a very scary story, because for all of us out there, and our listeners who are, wondering, how do we do that? How do we keep this going? This is our baby. Like, we birthed these businesses, right? And we really want them to continue. And when you and I, we talked to a lot of cleaning business owners. We were talking about this earlier, how when cleaning business owners get started, a couple of things that they always want is they want to create a great workplace. They want to build a strong team. They want people to love this job. It's something that comes from the heart. But then on the other side, they say they want freedom. They want time freedom, right? A
And there's
financial
a
freedom.
conflict.
And those two things don't go together. So you were just talking about something that was really great, I thought, and I hope everybody caught this. you were talking about the symptoms of when it starts to crumble.
Right.
And we often overlook that because the KPIs or the metrics that we're looking at aren't measuring culture,
Exactly.
right? They're measuring revenue and profits, and things like that. So you know, how do you measure that? So that is just so helpful. So let's pause right here because I want to come right back and talk more about how you were able to turn it around, because I know that you've had some great discoveries since then. And then we can share some more about culture magic. So we'll take a break. Is your cleaning business a grime story? There's no need to stay stuck in the muck because you're not alone. With over 500 active members and more than 500 graduates of our Cleaning Business Fundamentals program, CBF is the #1 cleaning business academy in the world and has created more mop-free millionaires than any program in the industry. Learn more and let CBF take your residential cleaning business from a grime story to a gleaming success. Welcome back, everyone, to True Grime Stories, here today with Debbie Sardone, and we are talking about building a culture that lasts. And that's something that we all want. We all want to have a positive workplace. We want to deliver great jobs, and we want, our people to stay with us for a long time. But it isn't that easy to do. And recently, I launched a new program called Culture Magic. And Debbie and I have been working hard on this over the last few years. But Debbie has some great experiences that she has had, not great, but great experiences rebuilding her culture when it started to decline. And this is what happens as our business grows. So, Debbie, tell us about, you had these two separate grime scenes, but very, very different, where your culture was challenged. So, how did you find your way out of those grime scenes and bring your culture back?
Well, there was something you said earlier that reminded me that the first time our culture went down, it had more to do with style, personality, and people feeling loved on and having fun. And that just needed to be systemized to teach my team how to maintain that style of fun, even if your personality is different from mine, because my leadership team didn't have my same personality. But then the second time, it was the opposite. And it's all about systemizing. That's why I got excited when you put together Culture Magic, because I believe anything you systemize can be repeated in your absence. But until you systemize culture, so a lot of businesses like my own our culture wasn't systemized. It wasn't automated. It was experiential, right? And it was by the owner. And so the second time our culture went down significantly was about 2.5 years ago. And we had a new CEO. My office manager had retired, and the personality and the style was there. It was fun, rah, rah, cupcake parties, and love on you, hug on you kind of personality and style, which is great because that was kind of my bubbly
That's who
style.
you are, right?
Yeah,
It was maintaining the personality of the business,
exactly.
right?
But the other piece of culture, and I honestly can say, Jeannie, I really didn't put 2 and 2 together until I failed. The other piece of the culture is the systems that are followed that keep the culture safe. And so what happened over time is, and I take responsibility as a leader. Over time, all of our emphasis and all of our metrics and performance metrics were around reaching our goals, growth. What was our revenue this month? What was our revenue this year? I mean, it hit 3 million when my culture was in decline and I didn't even know it, right? So our business was at 3 million. Wow, it was the biggest numbers we'd ever achieved. We had the highest number of employees we had ever had on staff, trained. RGEs is what we call them, revenue generating employees. So not counting the ones in training. I think we had it at 1.64 employees, RGEs out there cleaning and generating revenue. And so I was only looking at the metrics, right? And I didn't
And that's what absentee owners often do, right?
Yes.
We have
And
like
that's all
this
I knew.
dashboard and we think, well, as long as all these numbers are in line,
everything else should be fine.
Everything else should be fine. Yeah.
And normally that's true. And so, how on earth would you know the culture is in decline if the numbers are on the up and up, right? If the numbers are growing, how do you know the culture is in decline? And so, the only way you can know the culture is in decline is to find out, are we keeping the kinds of staff that align with our core values? Or are we running off those wonderful people? Are they leaving? Why are the good ones leaving? And are we tolerating more and more, a higher and higher percentage and longer C players, terrorists, right?
Mhm.
You've heard
That's good.
Darren Hardy talk about patriots, mercenaries, and terrorists.
That's right.
Are
Yeah. And
we
the terrorists
keeping
are the disengaged ones, that
right?
are working against you.
They're working against you. They're fostering a toxic environment. And so, are we keeping terrorists? And how many terrorists are on board? And
In
what
the name of
percentage?
growth,
In the name of growth, right?
right?
Oh, we can't fire this person who's got a bad attitude, who's running off other employees, who's wrecking our quality scores.
Oh,
We
but the
can't cut
clients
them.
love them.
Well, the client loves them, except when they don't, when they
Yeah.
no show or call
Right.
out sick. And so I wasn't really looking deeper at the culture. And so what we did during that period of time before you built Culture Magic was we just created a system to evaluate, well, what percentage of our team should be on a performance improvement plan, meaning they are not living our values, right?
Mhm.
Trustworthy, honest, dependability, all of those things that we say we value that really builds a powerful, wonderful, long-term, healthy, engaging culture. Well, if we're living those values, dependability, trustworthiness, honesty, hardworking, all those things we claim to value, well, then what percentage of our team are we letting them get away with it? They're not on a performance improvement plan. In fact, they're on the list of C players. What percentage? And I saw that percentage once I did an audit was at 25% of our team. And I was like, oh my word, no wonder the good ones are leaving. The long-term trainers are quitting. They're not just saying, I don't want to train anymore. They're leaving the company. And some of our long-term employees were leaving. And why do we
Mhm.
have so many new employees and so few long-term employees? And so once I began to look closer, it's like to reach our goals, we were lowering our standards of what we tolerate. And it literally did put our business in decline, but it took a while to see it.
Right. Yeah. It's insidious. It's just a slow process of breaking down everything that you've built up to that point. And it's so easy to push growth without paying attention to what got you there in the first place. You know?
Exactly. And, as the leader, Jeannie, I take full responsibility because that was all I was holding my leadership team accountable for. I was like, what's the numbers? How many employees do we have? What's our employee turnover rate? What's our customer attrition rate, which had spiked to the highest levels. That was when I began to realize, wait a minute, something's wrong, right? Is I began to see things like our customer churn rate was spiking. Our first time clean fails were increasing. Fewer and fewer employees wanted to be trainers. So that's when I began, when you pull a thread on a sweater and it just gets longer and longer.
Yeah,
That's when
and
I
it's
began to
really
look
important
closely.
for us to not be in denial. And
Right.
sometimes, speaking from experience, I did the same thing. I walked out of my business for the first time a couple of years ago and to become a coach with
Yeah.
cleaning business fundamentals. But when I did that, the things that I used to be in charge of,
Right.
the culture things that I was in charge of and I tried to pass off weren't necessarily continuing to be done.
Right.
And the hiring process changed
Right.
dramatically during that time. And it was really more focused on volume, like the
Yes.
volume of applicants and the volume of interviews and that kind of stuff
And
than
the
it was
volume of hires and the
right.
volume of starts. It
Yeah.
wasn't about the quality of people. And so over time, that shift, and again, neither one of us had people running our companies that meant harm. They meant the best for us. They were
Right.
trying to do the best. We were
Exactly.
failing as leaders by not giving them a system that maintains culture while you grow, maintains culture while you increase and reach your goals. And that was on me. I didn't have that system in place. So when I began to look closely and I saw many of our systems had eroded, right? And when your systems erode, like people change your hiring process, people change your trainer selection process. We have a full turnkey train the trainer program with a
Mhm.
careful selection process. So you select the right trainers, not the wrong ones.
Mhm.
And once those systems began to erode, our culture began to erode. And nobody knew how to fix it in the business. And I finally knew once I saw where the problems were. But it just reminded me, Jeannie, we may have a system for growth. We may have a system for knowing our numbers and measuring job performance. But if we don't have a system for maintaining culture, I truly believe it's going to be one of the first things that slips when the culture personality wants some freedom and steps away.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people in the cleaning business have big dreams, to
Mhm.
build big businesses, multiple locations, or move on to do something else. And you won't be able to be there every day. But the great thing is that you can, when you build a system, it's like your heart stays in the business.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how you look, you have to look in the mirror when this stuff starts to happen. And that's one of the greatest lessons that I've learned from you is like, it always starts with me. It all comes down to me. And so that's why the M in culture magic is mentorship. We cannot stop being the coach and mentor to our team, even though we aren't there every day. That is something that we have to be really, really intentional about.
Yep. And I love that because if I had had that system, right, I would have done a better job at it the first time. I did a little bit better job at it the second time. But the mentor, at a certain stage, you're mentoring your key leaders. At another stage, like the stage I'm in, you're mentoring only one person who is mentoring the key leaders, and those key leaders are mentoring the field staff. So at a certain point, I may only be mentoring one person, but I will never stop being the mentor. That's
Right.
part of the magic.
Right. And leaders have to grow new leaders. And we miss passing this piece on. It's almost like it needs to be the DNA of our business, but we don't seem to pass it on when we step out. It doesn't naturally come to us. And often it's the excitement of the next thing that's happening. And that's the experience that I've had is I moved on to become a coach and I was really excited about that. And it took my focus off the business, and you've done so many exciting things, I can only imagine, that you can easily get pulled doing this and assuming that, you've built this great business is just going to keep running. But it does need that care. And that's where culture magic comes in.
Right. I mean, what we need when we want more freedom from our business is to operationalize and systemize every important piece of our business. And most people have never operationalized or systemized their culture, right? And I hadn't. And I
Mhm.
didn't realize that it could be operationalized and systemized until I saw it slip. And I knew the solution wasn't, oh, well, roll up my sleeves and get back involved and be involved. I knew the solution was I need a system to monitor the culture, right? And when you have employees that are with you month after month after month, they're violating all of our core values. Then I know the culture is slipping because those people are working with our best cleaners. Those people are bringing down morale. Those people are sending the message that, hey, we've lowered our standards for dependability. It no longer matters, right? That message is sent. Nobody's intentionally sending it, but it
Mhm.
might as well go out in a text from the leadership team that says, we no longer care about dependability. Oh, and we keep tolerating people who lie to us about the clock, about how long they stayed at a home, about what one person said about another. Oh, well, we no longer value honesty. Don't worry about it when we don't do anything about it.
Mhm.
Respect, right? Here we say we have all these values. I wrote down these for you to share:
Mhm.
dependability, honesty, respect, integrity, improvement, right? Self
Mhm.
improvement,
Right. Growth. Mhm.
flexibility, and charity. Well, these happen to be my list of 8
Mhm.
values that we expect to be exhibited in our cleaners. We expect to be exhibited from our leadership team, and we expect to be exhibited from all the admin staff. So why is it I hold myself accountable to honesty and dependability and my leadership team to honesty and dependability, but I throw that out the window with a cleaner? Well, maybe it's because I won't hit my goals, I won't hit my revenue expectations, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm in trouble. I'm in decline.
Yeah. And it is one of those things that, intuitively, we don't think that it's measurable,
Right.
right? We think it's a it's a feeling,
Exactly.
right? That it can't be measured, but it actually can be measured. There are metrics that can show you if your culture is working or not.
Yes.
And, I love that you're watching that percentage of your, what we
Mhm.
call C players,
Mhm.
the detractors,
Right.
those who are, the terrorists, those who are working against you. It's so important to call that out on a regular basis. As at a minimum, quarterly, we should be looking at that number. And actually, inside of Culture Magic, that's one of the 30 plus tools that we provide to people who are in our Culture Magic program and our mentorship program.
Right.
So very
Here's the thing. Everybody on the team knows who the terrorist is. Everybody. We are not fooled. And when a leader makes excuses for keeping the terrorist, and the excuses tend to elevate themselves as a leader. Oh, I'm just giving them a second chance. Oh, I'm just being charitable,
I'm a
right?
softie.
Yeah, I'm a
I hear
softie.
I hear
I,
that a
I
lot.
just don't have a heart to let people go.
Yeah.
What they're really camouflaging is I don't have the integrity to do the right thing, even if it means I'm going to miss my goals. What
Mhm.
that means is I don't have the care and the charity towards my customers who deserved to get what they paid for. And once again, they didn't, because this person's dishonest. They sneak out of the house. They pretend to clock out an hour after they left. You know what I'm saying? We've all been there.
Oh, yes.
We've
Oh,
seen every story.
unfortunately, yes.
Right. And so, as a leader, if we're making excuses, well, I'm just a softie, it's not true. We're just being cowards, and we're hurting our whole team. We're hurting everybody who made the effort to get up today when they had to go find a substitute babysitter and didn't call in sick. They made
Mhm.
the effort. We're
Right.
punishing that person when we let somebody repeat over and over, oh, I don't have a babysitter. Oh, I have a hangnail. Oh, my car sounds funny. I need, all this reasons
Oh,
that people become
I didn't sleep
undependable.
well, I have a headache, grandma's in the hospital.
Yeah,
Yeah,
again
all of those
and
things,
again.
yes. And again, there's so many grandmas. But, and the thing that really hit me hard was when I realized that I was letting people down, when I wasn't holding others accountable, when I wasn't coaching people to the level that they needed to be coached. And that was the birth of Culture Magic, really, was the awakening moment that I had when I went, "Oh, it's me. And I need to create a system around this." And step by step over the years have been able to build this system out in a way that everybody can do it.
Right.
It's
It's simple to follow.
it is. It's
You
very
can
simple.
delegate it. Here's
Mhm.
the thing. If any leader listening to this feels really great about their culture, it's awesome, they've done a good job, ask yourself, if you stepped away for a year, would you come back to the same culture that you left? And if you are not 100% certain that everybody on your team knows how to maintain and follow your culture and keep the standards high, if they don't know how to do that, if they would be faced with those decisions of, let's try to tolerate this a little longer. Maybe it'll get better on its own, whatever it is. It won't be long before your culture erodes when you step aside. We should always be building the business we're not a part of. We should, even if I'm not going to
Mhm.
retire for 10 years, we should always be building the business that doesn't need us.
Right?
Then
Well,
if
we
we're
don't know
there,
what's
great.
gonna happen tomorrow, right? And you and I have both, you especially this year, have had experiences where you just have to stop. You have to
Yes.
pause because what's going on in your life needs your attention.
Right.
And I've had that, I've been through tragedies in my life and challenges, illness, various things where I was not available for my business. But the beautiful thing is that I was able to come back and my business was humming,
Right.
right? It was still going well, but that's because the system's in place.
Right. Your
And
business runs on systems and your culture runs on systems,
mhm.
right? It doesn't run on Genie. It runs on systems. And that was the biggest mistake I made in the earlier days of my business is I just assumed the culture would be caught. No, it has to be followed. There's a
I
difference.
love that. Yeah. It is, it does feel like it's something contagious, but it really doesn't stick unless it's being
Mhm.
nurtured.
Now, a
And
bad culture is highly contagious.
Mhm.
A
Right.
bad culture is highly contagious. It spreads like wildfires. You can turn a mercenary into a terrorist like that by not paying attention to your culture. You can watch them turn. But a good culture or an amazing culture, that isn't caught. That is taught, it is lived, and that only happens with a system that people can follow.
Right. It has to be deliberate. And it's not something that you come by with luck. I've
Mhm.
had people say to me, "Well, I'm just not that kind of person." I've even had people say, "I don't really like people." But they're
Well, find
entrepreneurs.
somebody who does.
Right. But anybody can build a great culture inside your business. Once you identify what you want it to look like, you can create it, systemize it, and sustain it when you have
Exactly.
the right pieces in place and the right systems in place and the right
Yeah,
people.
it's a tough business to be in if you don't like people. But my original office manager that was with me for 25 years that did an absolutely amazing job, she would tell you right here on this podcast, yeah, I don't particularly enjoy people, right? It's not her thing. She's an extreme introvert. But
Right.
but what she found was people to work for her that loved people, that could add the rah-rah and the cupcake parties and, the hugs.
Right.
She hired leaders to work in our office that could fill the gaps of where she wasn't the strongest.
Right. And we can hire, and that's one of the great things that we learn as we become leaders too, is that to replace ourselves, sometimes we actually find people who are better at
Yeah,
that than we are.
ideally, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I want somebody working for me that's got strengths in areas I'm just not good at all. And
Mm-hmm.
so if that happens to be, well, I'm just not bubbly. And culture isn't about being bubbly and having fun. It may be a part of it, but Derek Christian, one of our master coaches on our
Mm-hmm.
team at CBF, he talks about how his culture, like Culture Magic, is very intentional, right? And his culture has a different personality than mine. And he attracts people that love his culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So culture doesn't have to be this personality, right? It
Right.
does need to be an intentional, planned program to maintain the values, to eliminate the terrorists, to elevate the patriots, and to constantly try to convert the mercenaries to become patriots.
Right. Up or out, either you become an A player or not.
Exactly.
Um, and and that is really a good point that you made there, Debbie, is that my culture and your culture and Derek's culture and everyone else's culture is unique to your business. Your values are unique to you as the owner of your business. And so when you participate in culture magic, you're not going to learn how to make my culture.
Exactly.
You're going to learn how to grow your own unique, special, positive, and productive culture that you can sustain in your business. But it
Exactly.
it doesn't just create one culture, it creates a system for your culture to grow and thrive and keep going even when you're not there.
Yeah, I can imagine Derek Christian's employees would hate working for me, and my employees would hate working for Derek Christian. And the employees he attracts, because of the culture that he has built, they love it.
Mhm.
Be brief, be direct, be gone, right? Those people love it. And I guarantee you, he has the same successful culture that you have and that I have, because it's intentional, because it's a part of a direct system. It isn't willy-nilly guess and then it changes when somebody takes over.
Right. Yeah. And and I think that's what everybody truly wants, but very few people figure it out by themselves.
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of people talking about this.
Yeah.
What we are hearing people talk about is workplace loneliness is becoming an epidemic, and people are not building relationships at work anymore. And there are all kinds of other symptoms that are happening, and people are talking about them in a panic, but nobody is talking about the solutions. And that's why I felt Culture Magic was so important at this point, especially coming out of the pandemic. I think we're relearning how to lead with that kind of compassion and building a place that really is a great place to work. And so I'm super excited about launching in January of 2025 the Culture Magic course. And we'll be sharing a lot of information about that out in our residential cleaning community. So watch for that. And at the end of today's episode, you'll get kind of a rundown about what is included in Culture Magic and how you can learn more. And I hope you will click on that link and learn some more about how you can create your own magic inside of your business, and not magic that is just fleeting, but magic that lasts for years and years and builds a business that you can retire from or not, that you can just take some time away or step away, or you can sell it and that culture can keep going even beyond that. And that's a great selling point. If you were going to sell the business, how many businesses have a system for culture? Very,
Right.
very few.
Imagine if you are selling your business and you're able to say, not only do we have a system to follow to build a big, successful self-running cleaning business, we also have a system that you can follow, a turnkey system to maintain culture, to maintain this same culture. Because a lot of owners, when they buy a business, they're very nervous about, oh, wonder what's going to happen when that person everybody loves sells the company, right? It's like, well, we have something already in place that you can follow to a T to maintain that culture that everybody loves.
Yeah.
Culture is a system just like every other important piece of the business. And until you learn how to systemize it the way Jeannie has taught everybody, all I can say, Jeannie, is where were you 10 years ago when I needed you? The first time I failed at culture, when I tried to retire and my culture went to pieces. But
Well,
you're
and
here now.
that's what we're all about though, Debbie, and that's what I love about Cleaning Business Fundamentals is we look at the challenges of the residential cleaning industry and we find solutions and we help people maybe not completely avoid every challenge or
Sure.
every issue, but to give you the tools to overcome, because there are challenges as entrepreneurs. They're going to keep coming. And the problem that and I love that you shared 2 grime scenes today, because the problem that you have today is not the problem that you're going to have tomorrow. And it's not the problem that you're going to have next time. But when you have a system in place like Culture Magic, when you start to see that negativity start to rear its ugly head, you have the tools that you need to fix it and keep it going.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to report once we got our culture back under control, we have a new CEO that started almost 2 years ago, a little over a year and a half.
Wow, time
Um,
flies.
it is hard to imagine. And in less than a year, I want to say 6 to 9 months, it was a rough first year trying to regain our culture because our
Mhm.
culture had slipped into the abyss. But I'm so happy to report that, and I have regular check-ins with him, and we have what we call the red list, right? The red
Mhm.
list are the terrorists.
Mhm.
They got to
Mhm.
go or they got to get better, period, right?
Mhm.
And they're either on their way out completely or they are on their way up. And I'm so happy to report at any given time, there's less than 5% on the red list,
Oh my
right? We
gosh.
still have some mercenaries. They're fine. They're B players. They stick around. They don't cause trouble. They're just there to get a paycheck and go. And we're always trying to recruit them to become patriots. But we can grow a business and we can thrive in business with our B players and our A players, but our C players are what destroy us. They run off our customers. They destroy quality of life. They make everybody else not want to work with us or work with them. And so when we get better at our system for purging the bad ones faster and really cultivating an environment for the good ones to be glad they stayed, we truly have a magical culture. And I'm so grateful for all the things that you've shared in CBF behind the scenes as you've built a turnkey systemized program for this. And our CBF members are really grateful for the opportunities to work with you on their culture and take it from an experience and a personality and a style to a system that can be followed and maintained. And that's what CBF is all about, is let's solve every problem, then turn it into a system so it can stay solved. And I'm going to leave you with this statement. A lot of people can make a lot of people can build $1 million business. Not everybody, but a lot of people can make $1 million, but not that many people can keep it.
Yeah.
Right. And a
So
lot of
true.
people can build a great culture, but can you keep it when you step away, when you want to be less involved? Probably not, unless you have a system to keep it. So I'm
Yeah.
excited, and I love
Yeah.
this topic because I have blood and bruises all over the place from my grime scene of the 2 times my
Yeah.
culture went down, and it cost me a lot of money and a lot of stress.
Yeah, yeah. And we're all about helping our residential cleaning community avoid as much of that as possible. And we love to celebrate growth, and Culture Magic is one of the things that can help you. So I want to thank you, Debbie. This is so great. Thanks for offering to come on here and share some more grime stories. I know there
Anytime.
are there are lots of them behind us, and
I have a lot of dead bodies in the closet.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're digging up a lot of great stories here at True Grime Stories. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure that you download, subscribe, and share this with your friends because you could help them avoid a grime story of their own. And we're here to help you with your grime stories. And be sure to check out the Culture Magic program starting in January 2025. I would love to have you be part of it. And there'll be more information here in the show notes. So click on that and learn more. And we'll see you all again. Thank you, Debbie. And come back and see us again at True Grime Stories.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Is your team culture helping your business grow or holding you back? If you have a great culture now, will it remain positive even if you're not in your business every day? If these questions hit home, it's time to discover Culture Magic, a proven recipe and system for building a positive, thriving team culture that runs strong, even when you step away. Click the link in the show notes to learn more about Culture Magic today. Your dream team is possible, and it starts with Culture Magic. That's a wrap on today's True Grime Stories. Thanks for joining us in uncovering the secrets of cleaning business success. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and download, and check out our show notes for links and info from today's episode, and to learn more about our sponsor, Cleaning Business Fundamentals. Join us next time as we solve another True Grime story.